Okay. Stronger humans, how's it going? All right, so this video, and you'll see this mic here. The reason why this mic is on my hat because I'm going to share with you some ideas on breath first lifting. Um, Let me explain to you why I call this breath first lifting. A member of the Strong Human community, Hussein, he's in the Strong Human Flow Matrix, and in the Flow Matrix, the members there can ask me any type of questions about their personal practice, so I can give them ideas on how they can get past hurdles, improve, etc. And one of the cool things I love about like the Strong Human community is that everybody is doing different things in a way. Like maybe like a lot of people are doing rope flow, but some people are maybe still working with a lot of traditional stuff, which is fine. Maybe they're trying to progress with sandbags, trying to progress with clubs, maces, trying to do some animal flow, but there are people in there doing a lot of different things. But the concepts I'm going to be sharing with you in this video today, I believe, are concepts that are going to keep you safe as you continue to progress your weight with lifting weights. It's going to allow you to feel less stressed out when it comes to your body, and your body outside of the gym is going to feel calmer and more relaxed. And I believe this will give you more longevity when it comes to your any of the movement practices you take part in. Uh, with some of the concepts I'm going to be sharing with you in this video. Now, Hussein has a problem. And next, at some point, this phrase is going to be Hussein had a problem, because I anticipate that when he dials this in, things will continue to get better and better. Now, Husein's been progressing really well in the strong human community. He's been doing an awesome job with rope flow. He's been getting stronger with sandbags. He increased his bone density a bit in the last bone building challenge. But he has been finding that as he tries to increase the weight of the sandbags he's working with, he always gets a little tweak or twinge here and there. Now, there are going to be three concepts I'm going to share with you about progressing with weight, with this breath centric kind of lens. The first thing is going to be how to use the breath progressively and how to use the breath while lifting weights. I'm going to give you a conceptual understanding of that. The second thing is going to be the idea of mastering the movement, becoming. There's always ways to get better at things, and when you say you've mastered something, sometimes that leads to a belief that you have nothing else to think about when it comes to progressing. But when I say about mastering the movement, I mean truly understanding the different ways to coordinate the body for the movement pattern and potentially exploring more. So, obviously, mastery is something that we may never truly reach, but having the idea of heading towards mastery of the movement and having that be at something on the top of your list of importance is going to be very important here. And I'll explain concepts behind that. And then the third concept is going to be building volume before focusing on intensity. Volume means the amount of repetitions you do, the amount of pure volume of that movement that you're able to get in. And then intensity is going to be um, the typically, in simple terms, the weight of the load being lifted. Okay? So now that we understand kind of like what we're going to be talking about, let's go into concept one and its importance, breath centric lifting. Okay. I made a post about this and there was a short about this. I talked a little bit about it with Juji Mufu. And for those of you who have a deep background in martial arts, a lot of you are going to be saying, duh, dude, that's common sense. What? And it's this idea, a lot of people, is my head still there? Okay, my head's going to disappear here and there. But a lot of people, when they start lifting weights, right, they'll have a tendency of holding the breath in segments of the lift. So this is the thing, especially within the context of lifting the heaviest loads possible. Like for example, when I was in my powerlifting meet and I deadlifted 755 pounds or squatted 630 pounds, or when I did that 650-pound gym lift squat, right? At the time, I really didn't pay much attention to the way I was breathing during these lifts, but there's an argument for using the Valsalva maneuver, or the maneuver where you hold your breath and lift to lift the heaviest loads, because the Valsalva is meant to create a brace within your core so that your core is harder to move around, so that you're not going like this underneath the load. Okay? That's the goal of the salva. But the reason why I think this idea of breath-centric lifting should take a place within your repertoire of abilities or capacities, and because it doesn't have to be all you do, but it can be some of what you do, is in martial arts, when fighting against the resistance of an opponent, because when fighting somebody, the opponent is a level of resistance. The opponent has their body weight. There's a resistance you're fighting against. You're never going to hold your breath when fighting somebody. Okay, that's just an example. Because in life, ideally, there are very rare instances where you will hold your breath outside of swimming in a pool, right? But even there, there's usually a constant inhale and exhale stream. Let me think of yeah, there's usually a constant inhale exhale stream, and maybe short points of a mini breath hold. Okay, but outside of that, the only times where you end up holding your breath in life are typically the times when you have injured yourself. I think many of us can relate to a time where we tweaked our lower back. We go to bend down, and then we have to hold our breath because now there's a sharp pain, and holding our breath allows us to not move and feel safe. So, or we tweaked our back. So now when we're going to sit down in our car, we have to be very ginger with the way we're moving around. And what we'll do is we'll typically, okay, hold our breath while moving. We found a position where we can relax and breathe. We have to get up. Right? Typically, the breath is held when we've done something that the body is like, hold your breath so you can keep your body safe, okay? But what tends to happen for a lot of people is they bring that breath holding tactic into all of the weights that they lift in the gym, especially when weights start to get a little bit heavier. And what I want to teach you right now, this is in the Stronger Human Movement Foundations, I talk about this, but when you are conceptually, when you are lifting weight, what I want you to start trying to do is on the eccentric or on the downward portion of the movement, I want you to inhale. On a squat, this would be when you're coming down into squat, inhale. When you're coming up, exhale. Coming down, inhale. Coming up, exhale. You could do this through your nose with, again, use your nose as a metric of intensity. So when it's no weight, you can use your nose for this. So you can go, right? Well, if I were to lift this is a 275-pound sandbag. You know what? Also, because I'm going to be lifting this a few times through this video, I don't want people to think I'm over here lying about weight. So it's visible, 275 pounds. 100 pounds, 200 pounds. Okay, so I want to share that with you because I'm going to be showing a few things through this video that are going to be beneficial to understand. Okay, now that we understand that breath idea, using the breath, right? Let's think about when we lift things. Ooh, I can't see myself right now, but so who say? And for anybody, the way to develop this skill of breath-centric lifting, move this over here a little bit, okay, is to first start out not with the heaviest loads you're able to work with, but with lighter loads. This is important. Along with lifting lighter loads while using the breath, everything you do through the day needs to be done through the lens of the breath. This is going to take things a little bit far, but I want to give you a few examples. Are you picking something up? Inhale, exhale. Doesn't need to be that loud, but I was just breathing harder so you could see, but okay. It needs to be to a point where it's like it's not something you think about, right? You're bending down to pick it up. I inhaled on the way down, slightly exhaled on the way up. Automatic. When you sit down on the toilet, Inhale. When you are defecating, use your breath to defecate. So when you're pooping, what will allow you to relax that pelvic floor? It's going to be inhale, relax those muscles. Exhale, let it out. Instead of a lot of people hold their breath when they poo.
You have to change those things, right, in order to restore the muscle tone of our colon. And we have massive colon sickness in this country. And I tell you, it goes back to the way we poop, or we might push. That's extremely common. We do what's called a Valsalva maneuver, right? We hold our belly wall and we push down and create pressure against our colon that way. And then the body's like, it's just squeezing a tube of toothpaste manually, right? But that's not the design at all. We have a wave, a beautiful wave of muscular contraction that moves naturally through the intestine. We have a little ring at the end. It's called the external anal sphincter. So if it's just not an appropriate time to take a dump, we can actually say, sorry, body, no, it's not socially acceptable to lay this one out on the kitchen table. We have to move to another room, right? So it might just, you're on a bus, there's no potty, you got to wait, right? That's okay, but the thing, or there's a blizzard and then there's another blizzard and you're in a little cabin in a little house on the prairie and there's a rope going out to the outhouse and the whole family's going to die if in the blizzard. So you just hold it for a week or you're just Protestant, and that's how it's done. So God bless all the Protestants. I got nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying that in the old days, that was the thing. The whole family's going to shit on Sunday, whether you want to or not. So if we have these patterns, how do we overcome those patterns and restore the natural peristalsis, the natural undulating muscular contraction that's native to our colon for health? Because if you're pushing, you're going to get hemorrhoids. If you get hemorrhoids, you're going to be sore. If you're sore, you're going to bleed. So what you do is instead of using the fake tricks like pushing, you just fold, right? Fold what? The whole planet shits by squatting. All you got to do is sit on your shitter and lay your belly onto your thighs. It's easier to do than squatting, right? Because it doesn't involve the ankles, right? Where you might have shortness of the tendons there, and you might not be able to squat down. But if you just lean forward on the toilet on your belly and breathe, right? Or drink a glass of water instead of a cup of coffee, and sit on the toilet and lay your body to your thighs, right? And breathe. And wait. And don't force it, don't push it. Just wait for that peristalsis, because this is how your nervous system is built. Your nervous system is built so that when that thigh approximates the belly wall, it's against the colon, right, on either side. And you're talking to your colon. And as you breathe, it changes the internal shapes, not pushing, but breathing, right? And your body will be like, oh, yeah, and it'll start that wave, and that poop will come out.
All right. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Does your shit come out on the inhale?
Does your shit come out on the inhale?
When you breathe in your shit, does your shit come out on the inhale?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right? Exactly.
Your shit comes out on the inhale.
Because when you take that inhole, you notice it starts to relax.
That's right.
Your bubble goes up.
That's it. I like that. I want you should play the sound. I'm
telling you, this is a chronic thing. If you learn how to use your breath with everything you do, not with weight, and then with lighter weight, and then with heavier weight, you will have a much better time, right? We talked about in the last video how people tend to hold their breath when they sleep because of sleep apnea. A lot of things can be solved when you learn to use the breath to help fuel the movement through life. So again, pay attention. Start paying attention. Are there times when I'm doing things that I'm holding my breath? Am I reading and just on my phone holding my breath? Am I pushing my pee out and holding my breath? Or can I just relax and breathe? And I'm telling you, it goes deeper than you expect. But learn to do everything in life without having to segment and hold the breath. And it will seep into a bunch of other things. It'll be overall beneficial. So let's say this is a light sandbag. I want you to build the familiarity of lifting and doing things with this sandbag with inhales and exhales. Okay? I'm going to come down to the bag. I'm going to inhale, put my hands under the bag, exhale. Growling, that growl is something that can allow you to produce a little bit extra force before the growl turns into a roar. Because when you hear me do a few things, especially when the intensity gets higher with this 275, you're going to hear me, and trust me, I don't like necessarily doing this, but this allows me to use the breath to move weight. Okay? Now, again, step one, learn how to do this with lighter load. Inhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Inhale on the way down. I'm about to inhale on the way down. I'm going to exhale. Okay? When doing a row, exhale. Inhale. I inhaled when I was coming down, exhaled when I was coming up. I was using the breath to help me drive these loads. Now, that's the first thing. Learning how to do this with everything. If you're curling a weight, let's grab this kettlebell. I'll grab the nice pink one. I'm curling a weight. Exhale, or exhale on the way up. Inhale on the way down. Right? Try to keep the breath moving. Try to have a breath that can bring you continuous movement. That's the first thing. So learn how to do that with all of your movements. So you're not building the habit of holding your breath. But the second thing there is you are learning how to keep your structure strong without having to hold the breath. Okay, so an example of that would be, I'll put this 200-pound sandbag on my shoulder, or, you know what? Let me lift this 275 right here. So I'm gonna do some sandbag box squats. But you're gonna hear that I'm not gonna be holding my breath while doing so, okay? So, this is 275, okay? Okay, I come down, I'm gonna inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Okay? So, I didn't have to hold my breath while going down and coming up. I was able to do that while using the breath, inhaling on the way down. And even though I was inhaling on the way down, one would say, why don't you inhale on the way down on a squat? You're expanding. Yes, I'm expanding my diaphragm. I'm expanding my rib cage in these areas, but I'm not also losing shape at the same time. So I'm not having to, the Valsalva is like a weight belt. The Valsalva is a, don't move, right? A weight belt's put there artificially. A weight belt's pretty much an artificial Valsalva maneuver. When I deadlifted 755 in the past, I didn't use a weight belt, but it's because I had enough of a brace with a Valsalva maneuver. So I didn't like using weight belts with my power lifts because I felt like it was too constricting, okay? So this also teaches you how to naturally create a strong structure that you can put breath into while not having the structure move, okay? That's what lifting with the breath also teaches you how to do. So now you don't always have to use the Valsalva when lifting heavier weights. I'm going to throw this 275 over my shoulder. It's going to be a two-step throw. This is going to be the third thing on the breath. The third thing, and I'll go into this deeper later, but is as you're lifting something more forcefully and heavier, allow yourself and allow your exhale to do what it needs to do to complete the task. I'm a quiet guy in general in life. I don't like to make sounds, to scream, or to roar. But if I have to throw this over my shoulder, I have to create as much force as I can to do so. So you notice there was much more, there's more of that happened because I had to create those sounds to forcibly throw that over my shoulder, okay? My goal over time is that continuing to do that, I will get stronger and stronger, and that will take less of my overall effort. But right now, that is the breath needed to complete the task. But I never once had to hold my breath to produce that force or to do that. Didn't have to hold the breath. So that is the first part of breath-centric lifting and learning to lift in a way that you don't continue tweaking yourself. Because the second part of breath-centric lifting, I think this is probably going to be the shortest and easiest part, is to master movement before increasing load. And you know what? I just realized I'm just going to combine mastering movement with volume and intensity, because mastering movement inherently is a concept that is improved with having solid training volume or higher training volume. And let me explain why. I want to tell a story real quick. We had one of the greatest powerlifters of all time on our podcast in like 2019 or 2020. You might be like, Nsima, why are you talking about powerlifters right now? But his name was Andre Milanichev. And I asked Andre a question about lifters progressing in lifting. And Andre said something that I was like, oh, I value that advice because that's what I try to tell people to do. Now, you know what? Maybe I should I'm going to find the clip of Andre and I'll try to play it. But I'll also have the timestamp of the clip if I don't play it. But I'll just give a quick summary of what Andre said.
15,
It was more about
10
bodybuilding style. It was 4 sets, 10, 15 reps.
худым был очень
He was
сильно.
very thin. He was like skin and bones. And the coach was really nervous about it. And he was like, oh, you have to work more, work more, work more. So yeah, they were putting on muscles on his body so that he will be able to lift more, and his bones, ligaments, joints will be, let's say, under this, under muscles. They will be protected.
Andre said that in Russia, what they have lifters focus on is doing high repetitions of these movements before going heavier and heavier and heavier with the movements. Inherently, Andre has these lifters focus on working with a lot of volume first before working with heavier weights. Because what the volume does is volume conditions your tendons, it conditions your muscles, the ligaments, to your joints, your tissues. It conditions all of these areas so that when you have to move heavier load or more intensity, your body now has the preparatory work or the preparatory tissue to be able to do so. Okay? So, in context, let me talk to you, Hussein, or anybody who is trying to work with heavier and heavier sandbags and loads. The first thing to do is do those lighter weights for higher volumes. So it could be that you're doing sandbag box squats and you're doing sets of 10, you're doing sets of 15, maybe you're doing sets of 20. You're taxing the muscular system, you're working that movement, you're getting reps with the movement, and the weight might not feel like it's a crazy amount, but your muscles are burning, you're using more of your breath, you're training the pattern before adding more stress or adding more intensity to said pattern. right? So, and you need to give that time. Okay. So when you feel like, let's say that, let's use the, who say 75 pounds on your sandbag, right? You're doing sandbag box squats. But now let's say you've managed to do that. You can do that 20 times. Okay. Now grab 100 and work with that 100-pound sandbag on that movement on your next session. But maybe you just work 8 reps, 10 reps. Increase your ability, keeping a few reps in the tank. You don't have to go to failure for everything. But continue to train and get repetitions of that movement in before trying to go to 125, 150, 175, 200, right? If you have access to a gym, I think like gym training has beat this. There are high volume programs, there are low volume programs, there are people who are saying low volume is better than high volume, blah, blah, blah. But both low volume is very, very good, especially when a lifter is more experienced and when a movement is fairly low skill. Let me put that into context. A low skill movement would be a machine chest press. It is very easy for people to organize their body in that chest press and just rep that out. That's going to be something, and that's not a problem. That actually is a powerful thing because that low skill movement is something that anybody can go into the gym and just rep that out and get tension on those tissues. I would suggest if you do that, still learning how to use the breath, inhale, exhale, right? You can do it that way. But that's a movement that over time, you're going to probably see yourself able to do a lot of load onto that. Sandbags, I believe, are a fairly high skill movement ability. And it's not saying that it's like better necessarily. I think it has its advantages. And that's why I like sandbags over a lot of barbell stuff. But it is going to be a movement that takes more understanding of the way your body moves and the way you organize your body. That's why it can be frustrating for some people. But that's why you need to spend time lifting lighter sandbags, doing sandbag to chest, sandbag to shoulder, walking around with the sandbag, squatting the sandbag, pressing the sandbag. You need to spend time doing that before you increase to higher loads, and you need to spend time doing that while using the breath as your motor, okay? Then, as you become adept with that lighter load, then increase the weight. But don't change anything about what you were doing, because the way I lift this bag right here is the same way, with the same mechanics, that I would lift this 275-pound bag right here. Ooh, left some skin on the ground. Same way, okay? Still using the breath, it's just heavier. But nothing about my mechanics changes because I've gotten good at working with the lighter load. And I've gotten good at using my breath as the motor to lift these weights. So, that is a primer on breath-centric lifting, learning how to use the breath, right? Working, and conceptually, work with lighter weights first as you use the breath, and then slowly increase your weight, but don't let the breath go away. A good signal that you're not ready to work with the load you're working with is if you find that as you're having to lift that load, you start to hold your breath. That is your body saying that you are not ready. You need to go down. You need to lift the weight that you can lift with the breath before you lift heavier weight. That is my metric for myself. My breath is my metric for can I increase and use more weight. If I'm not able to use the breath, I don't increase the weight. That's just how I do things. Do you have to totally abandon the Valsalva like I have? No, you don't, okay? Just understand this is something that I'm doing for myself and it's bringing me benefit, right? But that doesn't mean you have to follow that as your guiding rule or your North Star. But for me and my progression, my North Star is the use of my breath and my ability to use it. And if I can't, there is something wrong with the way I am moving maybe my strength level just isn't there. But my breath is my metric. Because even if I could lift slightly heavier loads while holding the breath, I don't want to do that. That's clear. Just clarify that there, okay? I don't want to build that pattern because I do believe that certain ways in which you lift will have an impact on the ways in which you move. And a tendency I've noticed with For example, many people who are focused powerlifters and that is their sport, they tend to there's an aspect of like the sport brings adaptations to the body that is needed to move heavy loads. So there's a level of stiffness that these athletes do need to carry around so that they can maintain that stiffness when they're lifting heavy barbells so they don't injure themselves. There are breath holds that need to happen so these weights don't crush them. Okay, I get it. But that also does affect the way they chronically move through space and life. They tend to hold more tension than is needed. They tend to be very tight. They tend to lack movement range and ability. There just tends to be a type of archetype of movement that is synonymous with the powerlifter. I'm trying to build an archetype of movement that is strong and doing stuff in the gym, but is also fluid outside of the gym, in martial arts, in space. So that's something to think about. But once again, focus on the breath. If you're holding the breath, the weight is too heavy. The second, I guess, concept, movement and volume first before intensity. So get a very good understanding of the movement, learn how to lift the bag and the bells and whatever in different ways. Then you can increase the load you're working with. But you need to first have a good understanding of the movement with lighter load. Lighter is different for everybody. Light for some people might be a 125-pound bag, whereas light for another person is going to be a 50 or 75-pound bag. That is okay. We all have different starting points. Do not think that the 100-pound bag needs to be something that everyone does initially. That is not the case. I injured myself with a 150-pound bag when I started lifting sandbags because I still came into it with my former way of lifting. And I know there are people who lift sandbags while holding the breath. That's totally fine. Oh my gosh, mosquitoes. They're biting me. But that's not the pattern I want to continue to build into the way that I move. Okay? So many other people in the Strong Human have been adopting this and have been noticing that their sessions have them feeling less stressed. There could be multifactorial. Maybe, yeah, okay, you're working with slightly lighter loads. But as they get stronger and then they continue working with comparative loads that they were working with in the past, they're not as beat up because the breath is continuous and the breath fuels movement. Let me know if you guys have any questions about this. This was a bit of a long one. Um, again, there are courses in the Stronger Human Movement Foundations go through this. There are a few courses in the $47 movement bundle that go into this. In the Stronger Human Flow Matrix, I'm helping people in there with their specific movement practices. And there are different tiers in the Stronger Human community that can give you different access to different courses that I teach. So, if you guys have any questions, let me know. All equipment can be purchased at the Stronger Human store. I hope you found this helpful, and if you have any questions, comment down below. Let's keep it moving.